So what I've learned is that, I don't necessarily approach this from a spiritual perspective. I approach it from a very pragmatic perspective in terms of, you know, how I can use meditation and mindfulness to improve my entire life. Now, to take a step back, my first taste of meditation actually came in 2015. Somebody is not. You guys still hear me? I'll tell you what, moderating a Zoom call is a lot harder than it looks. So, back to what I was saying. My first taste of meditation came in 2015, and as most of you guys here know, when you are in the or when they have the Olympic qualifying window, it opens up a year before the actual Olympic year. So in 2015, my goal was to qualify for the Olympic Games, and I remember I had to go to the Congo. I was flying from Washington D.C. to Brazzaville in the Congo, and in order to get there, I was supposed to go from DC to Paris to straight to the Congo, be there a couple of days before the competition and get ready to go. What ended up happening was my flight was canceled. I didn't fly out to the next day. It took 36 hours. I traveled through 4 countries and like 3 different continents to finally get to the place. And by the time I had gotten on ground to the competition site, it was like just over a day before I was supposed to jump. Now, there's a little bit more context behind it in that I was left off of the world championship team prior to that after setting a personal best. So I was really charged up, and it had been 6 weeks from competition. And I remember warming up on the day of, and when you do anything competitive, y'all, all of us are athletes or been athletes at some point in time where you start to feel nerves. Nerves manifest in their own different way. For me, in this particular time, I was really out of breath. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was almost like I was having an asthma attack, and I don't have asthma attacks, even though I've been doing this for years. So I remember just sitting down and be like, okay, I am not moving until I catch my breath, because I was actually kind of like I was really, really winded. So I sat down, put my head between my knees, and I sat there and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just catch my breath. I'm not getting up until I catch my breath. Usually when I'm warming up, I will kind of just rush through it because I'm so antsy and I want to get moving. But I sat until my breath was fully in control. And what ended up happening was, as I sat down, my mind was racing. Oh, am I tripping? Am I nervous? Am I going to be able to qualify? This is my last chance. I got to do it. I got to do it. Am I going to be good? And slowly but surely, as my breath calmed down, my mind calmed down with it. Then I got up and I started competing, and I set a personal best and I qualified for the Olympic Games. Now, it wasn't until over a year later where I looked back on that. I was kind of like, huh. Because a year later, it was after I came back from Rio. I had already qualified, already gone to the games, and I started meditating in 2016. And I look back on that experience in 2015, and it reminded me that that was my first time really dipping into meditation or even mindfulness as a whole, where I really just controlled my breath or got in touch with my breath. Not trying to control it. We'll get to that in a bit, but I just got in touch with my breath, and that allowed me to gain perspective and regain my self-control and composure to compete. So, all that is an intro to what I'm talking about. What is mindfulness? What is meditation? Mindfulness is really, it's just becoming aware of your thoughts, your actions, your habits, your patterns, all the things that you do day in and day out, and being able to become aware of those and observe them without being wrapped up in them. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like saying, you know, if I'm angry, to say I am angry is one thing, to say I'm feeling angry is another. You can become angry, which only attracts more anxious, angry thoughts, or you can say I am feeling angry, which to say you are feeling, just say, guess what? Feelings are fleeting, right? So if you're saying you're fleeting or you're feeling something, it's going to pass. How you label things ends up determining how you experience things in a very real way. Now we don't like to really, I think a lot of time people try to avoid that because it's very easy to think that, oh, I never labeled myself as being broke. I never labeled myself as being, unhealthy. And perhaps you didn't, but it's the way you speak over time that things start to manifest into your life. But I'm getting on a tangent a bit. Mindfulness is, again, just the ability to become aware of these patterns that we have in our lives. Now, where does meditation come into that? If mindfulness is the ability or the awareness, meditation is the tool that helps us develop that awareness, which is why I call this meditation for athletes, because at the end of the day, we're athletes, and then we're very outcome driven when we need to also be focused on the process. But having a tool will help you kind of reframe the process as part of the outcome. Does that make sense? It's a holistic perspective. So meditation is just a tool to help us develop mindfulness. And a lot of times people get tripped up thinking that they gotta sit and for 30, 40 minutes. I was just on a Clubhouse chat earlier today with other Olympic athletes as well, who were saying they struggle with meditation because they can't sit for 40 minutes still without without their mind running, or without feeling like they are wasting their time. So when it comes down to meditation, meditation can take 1,001 different forms. You can walk for your meditation. You can journal. You can, I don't know, you could play video games. Playing video games can be a meditation. Anything can be a meditation as long as you're doing it fully attentively and being present in the moment. When you notice that your mind is going from being right here, right now, in front of this computer screen and this keyboard and this iPhone and this computer screen and a water bottle, to, dang, I'm about to run out of water. Am I going to be able to run downstairs and grab it before everybody looks on the screen and sees? Already my mind's already at that point, my mind is out of the present moment. And when we become mindful, we now are able to really tap back into this present moment stuff. It sounds so woo woo. It sounds so like, and you guys know me, all of you guys know me really well. I'm very energetic and enthusiastic. And the way I talk about this sounds like really energetic as well. But it's a very real thing when when you develop the skills to bring yourself back to the moment. And I think that part of the impetus for me to actually host this was really understanding we are still in a pandemic, and that enough people are still freaking out, and that there is a lot of real worry in the world right now. But even with all that being said, we still have the power to reclaim our our self-worth, our self-wellness, our mental health. It all starts with a choice. And oftentimes we lose track of the ability to make that choice because we're not necessarily aware of the patterns that create our habits. Does that make sense? You guys follow me, right? So case in point, y'all probably know I like to play video games. I mean, I play video games with kind many times. We should get back on Black Ops, by the way. But so I've been playing video games since I was a kid. Now, for me, video games, even though a lot of people look at it as mindless entertainment, I see it now that I'm an adult, now that I'm a professional athlete. I truly see my time playing video games, no matter what video game it is, as a time to really address my own mental patterns. Now, I'm super into self-actualization. This is who I am. I come to this world to not only be my best, but to share along with others what I know, what I've learned, right? So that being said, when I'm playing a video game, of course, I'm running around doing whatever thing with this character on the screen. But say I lose a game in Call of Duty, for example, a loss is a loss. The external situation might be different, right? In real life, if I go lose a track meet, I'm going to be feeling, oh man, I lost, whatever, whatever. But I've noticed that sometimes when I play video games and I lose, I have the exact same feelings come up. It doesn't matter whether it's a Xbox game or a track meet. The internally, your body and the neurochemicals that are released are going to be exactly the same when you taste defeat in a video game, or in a tennis match, or getting cut off on the highway in traffic, as you do when you do your main thing, whatever your main thing is, you know? So when we can start to realize those parallels, now we can start to control those parallels. There's only so much we can control, right? But when we start to realize, first we have to acknowledge what our controllables are. Once we can acknowledge those controllables, then we can start to work on controlling them. So Bruce Lee is one of my, I don't really have heroes or idols, but he's someone I do look up to. And he had this quote, and he said, all knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge. And this is exactly what I mean when I'm saying by playing video games or whatever I am doing, I am becoming more mindful. Anything you do is an opportunity to learn more about you. So when you realize that, and you are waking up, for example, we wake up tomorrow morning and you rush out of bed and you grab your cell phone and you're first thing you're looking at emails and you're feeling, I'm just going to go ahead and mute whoever real quick just so I can, because I'm hearing the echo again, but and we'll be able to take questions at the end, don't worry. So whenever you wake up and you experience those distractions and you begin your first hour of the day in a distracted state, what often happens throughout the rest of the day? You know what I mean? You if you start the day, for example, for me, I have a rule for myself, and it took me years to kind of get to this point, but after about, it's on a rare exception that anybody here will get a text from me after 9:30 p.m. I've done it before, and I think I texted Jess a few days ago as well after 9:30. But if I did that, it's probably because I have something that comes up. I have to let you know right now. But generally speaking, after 9 p.m. and before 8 a.m., you're not going to hear from me. It's nothing personal, but this is my time at the end of my day to prepare for my next day and the beginning of my day to set myself up for success in that day. I have to create the space for my mind to become ready to go through what it has to go through for that given day. If I start my day by looking at emails or phone calls or anything else other than being in my own centered space, I am fully responsible for how I go through the rest of that day, whether that's in a good mood or bad mood or otherwise. Okay. So a lot of the times we get wrapped up in our emotions. And I mentioned that, mindfulness is becoming aware of our emotions in an objective manner. Um, I always try to remember that emotions, no matter what they are energy in motion, right? Energy in motion means it's going to remain in motion. And I'm going to butcher the Newton's laws of energy conservation. I don't remember if it's first, second, or third, but they say energy can neither be created nor destroyed. We all know that, right? So if we know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it's always going to, and an object that's in motion stays in motion, which is another one of the laws. Well, we know that emotions are just energy, correct? Why would we hold on to something and an emotion if we know that it's always going to be passing? You guys staying with me? If we're holding on to something that is by its own definition fleeting and ephemeral, then we're only going to keep exerting our energy to it. As we do that, we create anxiety, we create worry, we create all the situations in our lives for us to become stressed out. So the whole point is to understand that when you are feeling an emotion, it's different from being that emotion. Mindfulness allows us to become aware of what we're feeling and understand that there's a distinction between what we're feeling and what we really are. Take it to the next level. Humans, we're all animals. We can talk, we can use Zoom, we can use all this technology, but at the end of the day, we're all animals, right? Humans, knowing that we are wired, we're still biological beings, we can experience a stimulus just like anybody else. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of Pavlov's dog experiment, but this scientist back in, I don't remember when, it was early 1900s or maybe 1800s, but he would ring a bell. And as he rang a bell, he would feed his dog. And then he would do this over and over to the point that anytime he rang the bell, the dog will come running with his tongue wagging. He's salivating. He's ready for food. You guys know what this is. You shake the food bag or you say the word treat, and all of a sudden the dogs come running, right? We like to think that we're so above that, but we're exactly the same, except because we're evolved to a point where we can communicate, we have thousands more things that can be tripping us up without realizing it. So we can experience a stimulus, and so often without even thinking about it, we end up responding mindlessly. Now, mindlessly means we're reacting. We're not even responding, we're reacting. For example, I'm at a desk right now. I stub my toe. Oh, crap. Ah, that hurt. I'm mad and I'm losing it. Or I stub my toe, I pause, and I think of how to respond. That's when we're starting to become more conscious and more creative with what we're experiencing. Because when we become aware that between stimulus and response, there is a pause. It doesn't have to be one, then the next. When we can create that space between stimulus and response, again, we're now starting to inject more controllables into our lives. Again, this always ties into anything that we're doing, whether it's business, work, track and field, sports, or anything else. Okay. So that's why I think mindfulness and meditation in general is something that if you work with me in any capacity, I have people, obviously, like I have a personal training client here and people, a person I mentor, and just friends in general. You guys have all heard me talk about this at length. It's very impactful for us as athletes, but again, as human beings, to become mindful in everything that we do, because again, as we become more mindful, we can start to, really gain control over our internal environment. And that's all that really is. So everybody following me right now so far, right? So I want to look at, there's a couple points I want to make sure that I cover as we go ahead. And then at the end of this, probably in the next 10 minutes, just 10 to 15 minutes, I want to take questions and all that great stuff. If you guys in the meantime have any questions you want to ask, I see a couple of you are taking notes, which is great. If you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat on the Zoom app. And then I'll be able to go back to it when I get done with the discussion. We can still cover everything that you have that as it comes up. So another bit of story time from me. Most of you guys know I went through an injury last year, January 2020. So I sprained two ligaments in my ankle, and I talk about it lightly now, as we talked about earlier with Kind, but it was pretty significant. I like actually tore ligaments in my ankle. It's bad enough to the point where the doctor was like, "Oh, we don't know if you're going to be able to keep training it or not." And I'm just like, "Wow, this is crazy." Um, and I say all that to say, if I had not been practicing mindfulness and meditation before that injury happened, I wouldn't be competing anymore. I wouldn't be training anymore. And that's not hyperbole. I mean that in a very real way. Because when that happened, I was able to realize, wow, this is huge. Man, I'll never forget it. I'll take you through it. I got hurt on the day of. I ran off. I didn't fall down. I sprained the ankle. I kind of hobbled off, went up to get some ice, went to work that day, wrapped up my legs, and at the time I was a human performance coach, so I'm carrying dumbbells and weights and all that. So I'm hobbling on one leg, carrying 45 and 55-pound dumbbells. So finally, I'm like, you know what? This is stupid. I should go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and they were like, "Whoa, okay, your ankle's like." By that point in time, my ankle had kind of swollen up to my shin, and just for a graphic display of what actually happened, close your eyes if you don't want to see it. If you imagine this is the top of my foot and my wrist is my shin, my foot with my shoelaces was in contact with the top of my shin. That's how far back my ankle got bent. So I'm lucky it didn't break. But so I went from that to going to work. And then they wrapped up my leg, and I remember, no, actually, that's not even what happened. The next day I went to the doctor. First day I went to work and I saw the physical therapist at the job that I work at. Next day I went to the doctor, and that's when they wrapped up my leg, said, "Hey, you got to chill out. You're like going to be out for a long time." That's when I was like, whoa, this is crazy. At that moment, when they put my leg in a splint, I remember looking down, and it's shocking. So less than 24 hours ago, I was just running around doing what I had to do. And I remember looking down at my ankle, and now it's immobilized. And in that moment, I remember there was like, okay, I'm either A, gonna freak the F out, or B, I'm going to see this as being for me and not against me. And as soon as I made the choice to see it as for me, I never looked back. That's not to say that I didn't go through a period of depression. That's not to say that I did not have my tears. I was crying, ugly cries too. But because I made that choice, that decision, in the first moment when I realized I could either go one way or the other, I created that pause between the stimulus and the response. I chose to respond mindfully and said, this is going to be for my benefit. I became a conscious creator of everything that came after that point. So even us having this conversation right now is a derivative of that moment where I chose to see this as for my benefit as opposed to being against me. And I know that everybody on this call has moments where they are going through the same exact thing. The details might be different. It might be a situation where we're talking about work, or maybe moving or changing jobs, or maybe you got fired from a job, but everything still remains the same. All external situations might change, but internally, how we respond and react, that will always be the same. So that's why I say, in a very real way, had I not been practicing mindfulness years before that injury, I'd have been retired. That would have been a career-ending injury versus a season-ending one. And now we're still talking about, training for Tokyo and beyond. So to wrap that little segment up in a bow, I like to say self-reflection. This is something I've been saying for a while. Self-reflection is my secret weapon because I know I will respond on a physiological level to anything that I experience. I now have control over how I respond. Now I'm still a human being. So I still get angry and I still respond unconsciously to things at times. But there are far fewer things now in 2021 that I respond to unconsciously than there were in 2020, let alone 2019 and any year before that. So the sooner we start to realize that meditation and mindfulness and however that looks to you, that if we start that now, we start the process of building that now, you're better off in a day's time and a year's time. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Nothing's going to happen overnight. You're not going to start doing meditation. We're going to end this call with a brief meditation, just 5 minutes, and I'll guide you guys through it. But I don't expect you guys to open your eyes and all of a sudden be enlightened and your third eye is open and all that. Everything's flashing colors. I don't expect that. You guys might even be like, why did I just do this? I couldn't even clear my mind. And that's not the point. The point isn't to clear your mind. The point is to observe, to merely observe. When you can realize that the difference between observing something or being something and observing something is the space in between. If two hands are together, these hands are, if I'm saying I'm angry, I'm feeling angry. Now there's me, the observer, and the feelings of anger. Guess what? The feelings of anger can pass because I'm no longer attached to them. See how that works? So when we start to realize that self-reflection in a very, very real way is a secret weapon on and off the playing field, we start to optimize ourselves on and off the playing field. But again, we have to start that process now. I'm coming to you talking about this after having begun a meditation practice or mindfulness practice in 2016. And I came back from again, my first taste of it was 2015. But in 2016, I came back from the Rio Olympics a changed man. And in a very real way, I had like mountaintop experience where I came down. I was like, I gotta, kind of keep applying it. And I remember just sitting there in a blissful state. This is if I see a couple of you guys taking notes, take this one down. The best time to begin a meditation practice was a year ago. The next best time is right now. Because you don't want to wait until you wish you were more conscious to have been able to handle a situation. You want to start building that now. There's a phrase, and I just co-opted that. It's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. So when you think about that, again, in a very real way, if we start doing this today, it helps us tomorrow. You want to dig the well before you get thirsty. So that's why I wanted to bring this to you guys, because I know everybody here is very driven. I know everybody here has ambitions. I know everybody here, we are all aligned in some capacity with what we're doing. And I feel it is literally what God has placed me on the earth to do, is to share my experience with others. So I appreciate your time in a very real way. Nathaniel, good to see you, man. That's all I got for that so far. And then we'll go into the meditation portion later. In fact, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to talk about how you guys, everybody here, can begin practicing meditation or mindfulness, whatever you want to call it, immediately. And again, let's go back to waking up first thing in the morning. A lot of the times, most times people get up first thing in the morning, and what we do is we just rush on to the next thing. But what else? I mean, I would also imagine that most people at first thing in the morning brush their teeth, right? If you don't have to tell on yourself. But most people brush their teeth first thing in the morning, right? If you can create time to brush your teeth, you can create time to sit in silence. Or even if it's not silence, maybe you live in a noisy area, you can create time to sit amongst yourself, whether it be for 1 minute, 1 hour, 5 minutes, any time frame in between. A lot of the times we just think that we can't meditate because we're not good at it. We can't meditate because we don't know how to. We can't meditate because we tried and we failed before. Well, what if I told you meditation isn't about doing, it's about practicing? You probably heard me say multiple times meditation practice, mindfulness practice, because it's about the process. We're not doing this just to gain an outcome, although we will reach many great outcomes along the way. We do it for the process of betterment and self actualization. So the sooner we can start doing that, the better for all of us. And I think right now in human history is one time where we all can really afford to be much more mindful of how we're going about things. I was just having not to get into too off topic, but I was just listening to the news earlier about, obviously they're like lifting the mask mandate for everybody who's gotten vaccinated. And that makes you have the conversation about, did you get a vaccine? Did you not? And everybody gets everything so highly politicized and polarized right now that just as I say vaccine, some people get triggered by that. But what if we could all, as human beings, whether we agreed, and this might sound happy-go-lucky and very John Lennon, but I kind of believe this, that what if we could really experience time in a space with someone, share space with somebody else who does not have the same opinions and beliefs as us? What if we could really start to actually have exchange of ideas, whether or not we agree with another person? That takes conscious awareness to not be so triggered to where someone says vaccine or another word, and all of a sudden you're having a reaction in your mind where now you're vilifying another person just because they said a word. The society as a whole really could use a lot more mindfulness, whether it comes in the form from meditation or any other type of thing. So that being said, I'm just going to look at my notes real quick. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I do want to go into the meditation in a bit, but before I do, I want to just field questions. Anything anybody has to ask. Nathaniel, I saw your message. It's my pleasure to be able to do this. Anybody has a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, I like when you were referring to reflection. I do that often, but my concern is often when I reflect, it's due to my own doubtful concerns. So my question to you is, do you have any advice for how I can reflect in a healthy way rather than in short, I'll explain to you what I mean by my doubtful concerns. You're not doing good in this. Therefore, you need to do A, B, C, and D better. So, I reflect and I'm like, okay, let me do this, that, and third better. My concern is, okay, what if A, B, and C did not work? And so I'm constantly on a never-ending cycle of trying to become better, which of course is what our goal is. But I find myself struggling in the concept of I'm always doing something incorrect, which is why I'm not getting the results that I need to get. So in a healthy way, can you help me determine some ways where I can stop thinking so doubtfully within what I'm doing and start being a little bit more optimistic and positive about what results I could receive?
That's a good one, because through mindfulness, we can start to remember, I mentioned earlier about how we can observe our thoughts versus getting wrapped up in them. When we get wrapped up in a thought, we create judgments. Now, hopefully, try to follow me with this. Everything you experience in life is a relationship, right? So for me to my phone, that's a relationship. I am here, my phone is there. That's a relationship. I am here, the kitchen is downstairs. That's a relationship. We, especially as athletes, have always our mind fixed on where we want to be. A relationship. We're here, we want to be here. The space in between where we are in our relationships, we often put judgments on. We label that. I am too far from my outcome. I am not close enough to my outcome. I'm not moving at the right pace to my outcome. Now, as you become more and more mindful, one thing you are going to realize, I'm going to say it now, but you're going to come to the realization of it for yourself. The issue isn't that you are, well, from my perspective, I want to say the issue is that you're on the wrong path or doing something wrong and that you need to pick it up. But it's more so the judgment that maybe you're not doing the right thing right now. If you're giving your honest best effort in the present moment, what more do you need to do? Does that make sense? So mindfulness, and it helps us develop the ability to, first and foremost, understand when we're judging ourselves, because that goes deep into self-talk. And perhaps we'll have another conversation. If you guys are down, we can do another one of these on self-talk specifically. But when you start to acknowledge what your self-talk is, well, guess what? Self-talk is a pattern, a programming that goes in the back of your mind. And you're not, until you are aware that you are talking to yourself at all times, it's just something that keeps going on in the back of your mind. But when you become aware of the self-talk, that's the first step. You may not be able to change it overnight. So now, Dara, you're clearly in the space where you've understood that your self-talk is kind of putting you in a cycle. Good. How do you break that cycle? Keep observing. The answer will come on its own. I can't give it to you. You will observe the answer in your own practices as you go day in and day out in living life.
I have another question.
All right.
How do you become more self-aware? So say, I don't know, you're just having a bad day. You wake up, barely got any sleep, and everything after that just starts. Everything after that just starts becoming, I don't know, an annoyance, work, training, your girlfriend. How do you become more aware of your feelings and try to get out of that kind of pattern that you're going through the whole day?
This one I'm going to give you an example of because I just went through this on Sunday. I was going to get my hair retwisted, and that's an hour away. And by the time I got up there, and I'm sure you guys know about this gas shortage thing going on right now, everybody's losing their minds in the South right now. By the time I gotten up there, I realized, man, I need to get some gas. But I pulled up to the place where I was going to get my hair retwisted. And as soon I picked up my phone to text the person who was going to do it. And as soon as I look at my phone, it was someone who I live with who had texted me saying, we're locked out. Can you come back home? This is an hour plus away. I just spent gas. I know I'm not going to be able to get gas to get back because people are losing their minds about this gas thing. And I remember getting out of the car. I was pissed. I was like, and I was saying it to myself, like, I'm pissed. I'm in the park. Like, I'm so pissed off. I'm so pissed off. I'm feeling pissed off. And as soon as I realized that I was simply feeling pissed off and stopped saying I am pissed off, I didn't automatically stop being pissed off. I was still pissed. I was still feeling pissed. But what ended up happening was because I wasn't, when I said I am pissed off, I was getting more and more angry. But as soon as I said I'm feeling pissed off, I noticed that at the very least, it's going to pass. I immediately felt a little bit lighter in my spirit. Now, again, to become more self-aware and I'm not trying to sit here like I know everything, but one thing I've noticed in my experience is as soon as I can realize that I'm acting and behaving in a certain way, as soon as I snap out of the being something into the observing of something, I've already created the distance. And then I just allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling. Once I allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling, it tends to pass on its own. The day might still feel sluggish and, not great, but at the very least, if I can realize that that's happening, I can stop judging myself for feeling bad about it. Sometimes it's not about snapping out of making a bad day a good day, but more like stop labeling a day that things aren't going the way you want them to as being bad altogether. You know? I hope that answered that question.
It did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to jump in here again. And by the way, kind as an aside, something that I noted, Olu, when you were talking about that is I'm like an introvert. I know a lot of people think I'm not, but I'm an introvert. And so I spend a lot of time alone by choice. And I noticed that the more time you spend alone, the more time you hear yourself and you're able to learn and become more aware of yourself. And I think that's kind of what meditation is too. You start to realize like, what is that thought coming and going? And so it's practicing, but Olu, I want to jump in and ask another question too. So this is interesting. I know you had your injury and you've sort of dealt with this now more recently. Obviously, you know my story. I've gone through, low back fractures, ankles, sprains, all sorts of crazy stuff. And so my question is about chronic conditions or semi-chronic conditions, because, you talk about separating like I am angry versus I feel angry. and creating that space in between, which is awesome. But I think it also gets harder when you start to feel, especially with chronic, whether it's semi-chronic or totally like a chronic illness, you start to feel like you are that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, or what's your feedback on somebody who's going through an injury day by day by day, trying to figure out how not to feel angry or in pain constantly when they are feeling those feelings, you know, for an extended period of time?
To be honest, I guess I'm fortunate in that I haven't had something that was chronic myself to go through. So, but I do feel for anybody that's going through that type of situation. Um, I think for me that, again, I haven't gone through that, so I can't even speak from only my perspective, but I can speak from stories I've heard. So I've heard stories of, and I'm trying to think of a specific one. Tom Morris. Tom Morris is a strength conditioning coach at IU. And he used to be our strength coach, I believe, my freshman year. And Tom is like a really strong, like, not even just CrossFitter, but like super fit guy. And he had a mountain biking accident like around my senior year. So it put him in a wheelchair ever since then. And obviously from outside looking in, I can't tell you what he's really experiencing, but I can say what he's shared. And I can also talk about the spirit he embodies. You could just see its real energy, that he just realized that while he may not be able to go run his Ironmans or do any of that other stuff that he used to do on his legs, now that he doesn't have the use of his legs, it's just who he is now, you know? A lot of the times where we get tripped up is we think things should be a certain way. And because we're not feeling how we think we should be feeling, we don't accept where we are. So if in the case of a chronic injury, or in the case of, I guess, losing the use of your legs, again, not speaking for him, you can either get caught up with the fact that you are not able to use your legs, or you can say, what can I do without the use of my legs? Does that make sense? You have to accept where you are. I think I mentioned earlier in the beginning, it's very easy for us to take our minds out of the present moment. All there is now. Time is really a construct. Think about it. Right now, it's 7:45. Somewhere in the world, it's 7:45, but 12 hours away. How does that even make sense? Time is made up, right? So if all there is really now, then anytime we think about tomorrow or yesterday, we are taking ourselves out of the present moment. Right here, right now, if you have a chronic injury or illness or injury or any of that type of situation, like for example, when I was in my cast, I'd be watching TV and all of a sudden I get pissed off, like, man, why did I got this thing on my leg? But hold up, I'm in front of a 60-inch screen TV watching Netflix. I ain't got to go to work. I ain't got to lift 100-pound kettlebells for the next 8 hours. Life's pretty good. And when you can snap back into the moment, it's constant snapping back into the moment, I guess, would be the long-winded way of getting to that point. To answer that question, I think constantly bringing yourself back to the moment till it becomes, you have to actively do it. And it doesn't matter whether it's a chronic injury or traffic, you're driving through traffic or anything else. You have to constantly bring yourself back to the moment, which might take effort. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a lot of effort until the point it becomes, it's a little bit less effort, until the point it becomes automatic. And now you're just unconsciously bringing yourself to the moment, where now the moments where you're out of the moment, present moment, or you're away from the now, become the minority versus the overwhelming majority. I think that's the way I see it.
I got an answer
Yeah.
to that, because I actually did have chronic pain for a long time.
Mhm.
I had plantar fascia for years. Every step that I took was painful. I woke up in pain. Every day I was in full pain. And I was still training at this point for the world championship. And it came to a point where I just had to accept that pain, what Olu was saying. You have to accept it like you chose it. And so once I accepted that pain, it allowed me to move forward and just keep getting stronger. So what I did, I accepted the pain, and then I did things to strengthen my feet, to strengthen my knees, to strengthen every part around the plantar so the pain will go away. And eventually, even though my foot eventually tore in half from that plantar fascia, that pain that I went through all those years, it hardened me. it hardened my heart, it hardened my mind. And therefore, after I got everything repaired and was able to start running again, it almost seems like I was invincible, to say the least, because I had gone through so much pain for so long that I accepted where I was. I strengthened that area, I tore that area, and then I built myself back up. And it's that rebuilding process that I think which truly makes you stronger and just a better person. It's a rebuilding process. But the chronic pain, you just have to accept it like you chose it. And that's what I did until it tore in half, and I just became stronger and better from it at that point. But chronic pain's no fun. And I definitely get what you're saying, but you just have to accept where you're at and then, just get stronger from it.
It's wild you're saying that, Olu. I don't want to take over your call here, so I'm gonna.
No, this is us. This isn't mine. This is ours.
I just say no. That's awesome, and it's funny that you say that because I totally feel that. And I remember when I was in college, and I dealt with chronic back fractures, which I know sounds really painful, and it was, but it wasn't like I was broken in half, which is what most people pick. So it was not that bad. But I remember I was going into like my final year of ACCs and championships and all that stuff, and I felt it. You get used to when you do something multiple times, you've done it again, and I had done it again. And I remember talking to our doctors and our trainers and basically being like, how badly can I mess this thing up if I compete on it? And they were like, it's likely not gonna, get, but so yada, yada, yada. And so I did make the choice to compete on it. And when you make that choice and you feel that pain, you have a different, like Olu said, a different relationship with that pain. And so if you can apply that to the minor moments in chronic pain, because at the end of the day, to some extent, I mean, obviously, people have coaches and trainers and you have big goals. And a lot of times you feel like it's not your choice, but by and large, it actually is your choice. And you can decide, to stop running, you know what I'm saying, in that given moment. And so every step you take is a choice. And when you look at it that way, it is painful, but it definitely reframes the pain and makes it easier to manage. So that's awesome.
It's so true. It's like you either accept the pain, and this sounds from an athlete perspective, it also sounds crazy, but like you either accept the pain and keep doing what you love, knowing that the pain is just part of it, or you accept the pain of not doing it at all. And sometimes I think the pain of not doing it at all is harder than taking, because if you're feeling pain, that's one thing. You have to do 10 different things before you can even go jump now, just to make sure you're staying relatively healthy. Or you could be not in the sport at all, and again, this doesn't only have to do with sport. This is with anything. So yeah, that's so real. Yep.
Pain makes you stronger. It makes you stronger.
Absolutely.
Injury makes you stronger. Pain makes you stronger. But you just have to overcome it. Like life is tough. Life is extremely hard. And people who don't go through these people who's never felt pain and struggle, they never achieve what they sought out to achieve. So
Absolutely.
you have to go through these type of things in order to to find yourself, to better yourself.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any other questions related to that at all? Let me just double check the chat. All right. So if there's no more questions, first and foremost, again, I really want to thank y'all. Like this is, I'm hosting it, but this is our space. This isn't me to you. This is us meeting of the minds. So really appreciate your time. What I want to do real quick, and feel free to disable your camera and mute yourself or keep your camera up if you want to. It's completely up to you. I want to kind of just go through a quick guided meditation. I'm not about to sit here and say or anything. We're not going to chant. In fact, I don't even have meditation music to play for you. We're just going to literally sit in silence, relative silence, for 3 to 5 minutes. And before we do this, I know most people have something that you're writing with. I highly recommend you bring out something that you can write with, because the first raw thoughts that come out of your mind from after a meditation session, no matter how brief or how long, are oftentimes exactly how you're really feeling before you put your layers of judgment over top of it. So those raw thoughts you have are very valuable. And as you begin your own meditation practices, you're probably going to realize that late, like nighttime before you go to sleep and early morning are when you're going to get those raw thoughts out of your mind before you start to judge them. And those are, once you realize what those raw thoughts are, it's just data, like a scientist. You have the data. From there, you can start to, work your own experiments and make your changes as you go along. So before we go into the meditation, does anybody have any questions about that, how that works? Nope. Okay. So what we're going to do is, like I said, feel free to get to a comfortable position. I'll allow you guys to do that real quick. And I'm just going to walk y'all through a quick little meditation. It's nothing specific. And yeah. Let's put on my other AirPod real quick. All right. So it seems like everybody is pretty much settled. So I'm going to look at the clock. It is 7:54. All right. So first things first, get yourself nice and comfortable. If you have your thing that you're going to write with, keep that next to you and just get yourself nice and comfortable. Whether that's sitting cross-legged, you can be standing, you can be sitting, you can be laying down. If you're not going to fall asleep, just get yourself comfortable. And if you're driving, that's cool too. Just make sure you keep your eyes open. Just kind of tune in, I'm gonna give you a little bit longer because I see some movement still going on. All right. All right, so when you have an opportunity, go ahead and close your eyes. And I'm gonna close my eyes with you because we should do this together. Now just take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Try to fill your belly up. Big belly breaths, as we like to say. Now you might be in an environment where there's a lot of people or a lot of movement. That's okay. When we meditate, it's not necessarily about shutting down our mind. It's about observing. So try to remember that. If you're in a noisy environment, you can always create quiet in your own mind. It's natural as we meditate that your mind's going to attach to certain thoughts. As soon as you find yourself doing that, remind yourself that you are the observer and not the observed. So move from being wrapped up in those thoughts to just feeling how you're feeling. And that's okay, however you're feeling. And as we come out of it, just take your time. It's no rush. Just deepen your breaths a little bit. Before we open our eyes, just think quickly that, maybe everything we've wanted or everything we wish to become already exists. It's not that we have to move from here to there, but that we just have to bring ourselves back to now. And the more we continually bring ourselves back to now, we can create our own flow and synchronicity. And being in a calm, present state becomes our normal state of being. You can go ahead and open your eyes whenever you're ready. And as you do so, take a pause. I'll be quiet. Just grab your writing utensil, whatever that might be, and just jot down the first few things that come to your mind. Don't abridge it. Just write down whatever it is. I'm gonna do the same thing. So you guys don't have to share what you wrote down. Me, I actually am going to share it because, again, I feel grateful to have been able to share this space. What came to my mind was, thank you, God, for allowing me to hold this space for others and myself. That's just what came to my mind. I'm not sure what came to yours, but whatever did come to mind for you is, it's significant and insignificant at the same time. It's a paradox, but it's meaningful. It's, maybe you wrote down that, oh, I couldn't even steal my mind for 5 minutes, or maybe you wrote down, wow, that was refreshing. Whatever it was, that's leading you in a certain direction, that just pull the threads at that, for the next few days. And if there's one thing that I would say would be homework, definitely try to inject a meditation into your day, whether it be just like we did 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes in the evening, all three. Just try to do that this is Wednesday, so try to do that tomorrow and Friday for the rest of the week, and then see how you feel by the time you come to your weekend. All right. So again, I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. I know meditation ain't like a cool topic, and I don't really care because I think it's something that needs to be shared. So yeah, appreciate your time, awesome, y'all. Yeah.
Hello, of course. This is Pam.
Hey Pam, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. I logged on my computer and most of what you said was very garbled. I could barely hear it. And then I finally wised up and logged on my phone so I could hear the end of it. But you really gave me some food for thought and some great ideas. So thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me to be part.
Hey, I appreciate you coming, Pam, and hopefully I can see you soon. Don't worry, I actually am recording this entire thing. So I have everybody who signed up, I have your email. So I'll just send out the link when it's uploaded. And then if you want to revisit it, you can do that later.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Yeah, no problem. Bye-bye. All right.
Hey,
Dara,
when I got out the meditation, all I thought about was, man, I'm just glad to be a human. Like,
man,
we could have been anything else, a dog, a dolphin, a monkey. I'm just glad I'm a human and able to, I can literally do anything I want. I can get in my car right now and drive to California. I can buy a plane ticket to South America and stay there for a couple years. Like, we got the ability to do anything. I just like that as far as being a human.
Like,
for real.
Homie, like we're talking to each other through a phone and looking at each other. Like,
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I'm always geeked out. I'll tell you this, the more I practice like my mindfulness, the more I became like geeked out by the little stuff, man. Like just everything you just said, man. Like we create so many different ways to be connected, you know, but at the same time, if we don't realize that we are the creators of those connections versus the other way around, that they create us, you know, I think it's very important now more than ever that we get this type of content out on social media where people can start to realize, okay, hey, let's take a break and remember who we are versus who we are portraying ourselves to be. Yeah.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
So again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to wrap it up in a little bit, in about a minute or two. But if not, we good?
Good to go. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for joining. Love y'all. Love y'all. Stay
You
good.
too, man. Yes, sir. We're gonna have to do another one of these.
Oh, we're gonna do it, man. We're gonna do it. I'll send out a couple notifications on the next topic.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, y'all. Appreciate all of y'all.
All right,
Take it easy.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.